But that isn't as of right.
No,
No,
that's a process.
That's a process where you could be denied or approved. Which I just want to point that out. So, you know.
Yes, but under existing zoning, you don't have to change the zoning.
Yes.
And then there's another option which people do all the time. If they want to do something that's not specifically permitted by current underlying zoning, they ask for a zoning variance. I was on the zoning board for 10 years. We saw lots of requests for zoning variances. They have a right to do that. I don't think they will.
Well, that would be a pretty hefty variance to go from allowing no housing to allowing 100-something units.
I think they may have looked at it. I think they may have analyzed it. I think they may have concluded that that would be a heavy lift.
Yes, because if I just concluded, I'm sure they have somebody smarter than me thinking about this.
So, but there are those four options, and it seems from everything we've heard that what they would like to do is petition the Board of Trustees to change the zoning.
Okay, you know, and they have a right to ask. Absolutely. And you know, that is, you know, this is America, and they can address, you know, their elected leaders. But I just, you know, if the elected leaders decide to do it, they have to really be sure that this is right for the village of Mamaroneck before they decide to accept it. Because once the process starts, it's hard to stop. And it gets to be, you start negotiating against yourself. You know what I mean? Now you're playing in their house. You know what I mean? So if this is not good for the village of Mamaroneck, they have to decide that. If they decide it's good for the village of Mamaroneck, pardon me, then fine, accept it and let the process go through. And if something pops up that you then find, you know, is detrimental to the village, then you could still kill it. But if you don't, you know, think it's good from the get-go, you know, don't let him waste his money. Don't, you know, waste village resources, village time. And you know, let's face it, this is going to cause a lot of anxiety for a lot of folks. So if you're going to do that, make sure this is really, really what you want to do before you do it. You know, if you're going to get people upset, get people, you know, in an adversarial situation, make sure that this is really what you want. Don't let the process decide what you want.
I think, again, you're very correct. I think there needs to be civil conversation, discussion, and informed debate before the fact, not after the fact.
Because if it just gets sprung on people, people are going to feel that they didn't have a voice, they didn't know about it, they weren't informed about it, and you know, this isn't what we wanted. You know what I mean? You really have to, if you're going to do it, you really have to make the case about, you know, why this is good for the community, why this will be beneficial for the community going forward. Now, I'm sure one of the arguments will be that, you know, it'll increase the tax base, and you know there's, you know, on first glance, that might be right. You know, there will definitely be more taxable property than there is now. But you know, you have to balance that against, you know, what services, and then, you know, the problems with condominiums is, as you know, they aren't taxed like homes. They're taxed based upon their income possibilities. So you could have a condominium worth $1 million, and it's taxed much less than a house worth $1 million. And also, because it's based upon income, they have a much higher degree and a much higher success rate in certiorari's. They can prove that, you know, that the income wasn't what it's supposed to be, and the commercial property doesn't rise as fast as, you know, not in this market, but usually the price of commercial property and the value of commercial property doesn't rise as fast as residential property. So then they go for certiorari, and then you're lowering their rate. So you get this money, and you think you're going to have this pot of money forever, and then it keeps diminishing and keeps diminishing and keeps diminishing, but you still have to provide services. Now, one of the things that happened recently is Mamaroneck and, you know, the whole East Coast suffered, you know, horrible flooding. Mamaroneck got some flooding, but it wasn't as bad as some other communities experienced. But I wasn't down there, but did you look at that property after the hurricane?
Yeah, I happened to live about 3 minutes away from the property, and when we first moved up here, we used to take the kids, most of the kids in the neighborhood would be on that property, and sled down the hills.
Yeah, my children did that too.
You know, it was great. So, and we would take walks along there, and we did go out there, I guess the day after, and you know, depending on your point of view, it was either the most gorgeous lake you've ever seen, or it was utter devastation. But basically, the huge majority of that property was underwater, and it looked like a lake. And that water did not come from rain. This was not a rain event. That water on the property was the Long Island Sound. The harbor came up, the sound came up, it was an astronomical tide at the same time as a surge, and it just came onto it. The Hampshire Country Club is essentially a bowl, and it filled. In my view, and I'm really not an expert on this, but after seeing what we saw, and after seeing the utter devastation around the coastline of Orienta and other areas in the village from just the surge, the storm surge, which, by the way, we didn't get the full brunt of it. We were very, very lucky.
We were very lucky.
Very lucky. To try and not have that happen in the next event, and we're going to have other events.
Probably with more regularity than we care to admit.
Would presuppose that you're able to stop the Long Island Sound from coming in. You can't.
Just in fairness, the clubhouse is on a higher piece of ground.
Sure.
And the clubhouse area did not flood.
That's correct.
I just want to point that out. But if folks had been living in that area, they basically would have been marooned on a lake. And the problem that you have as a municipality is when these things happen, is you invariably have people who don't evacuate. And they get into trouble, and you have to send first responders out there, and you put your police, your fire department in harm's way just because there are people living in, we've built too much over the years in flood zones. I think the trend now, you'll see in a lot of these communities that were ravaged that aren't going to get rebuilt because they're not going to be able to get flood insurance, and it's sad, but it's true. We have tempted nature for generations, and now nature is, we're paying the price. But we have to. That also has to be considered here too. Is do we want to put 100 and something families in this area that is not served by good roads to begin with? There's one little road coming in and one little road coming out, and no ancillary roads, and have that be marooned during a flood and have to send our volunteer firemen and our police officers out there, and this is more stuff to consider.
The road, of course, going from the clubhouse out towards Hommocks was completely cut off and underwater, unusable. And it happened to have been the exact same road in the same location where in the nor'easter of 1992, the unfortunate incident where an elderly man was trying to drive through that road, and the sound came in so quickly, he drowned, basically. Yeah. It should also be pointed out that there's not one public road in that entire property.
That's right. Cove Road is a private road.
It's a private road.
Yeah. I don't know if Eagle Knolls might be.
Eagle Knolls Road is at the point of the border between the town and the village. That portion in the town is a public road. Okay. Not in the village.
So there are a lot of things to consider here.
There are a lot of things to consider. But I think there are a couple of questions that should be, again, civilly discussed and debated. We know from the standpoint of the property owner that there is benefit to trying to realize the type of development that they're conceiving of or on a conceptual basis. Why else would they want to pursue it unless there was a benefit? So that's fine. The village of MAMARONECK as an entity and the community of Orienta as the neighborhood should ask the question, what benefits accrue to the village and to Orienta? And right now, the only thing I've heard from any discussion is, well, it's going to bring in more taxes. And I really, really think that's a red herring sort of argument. I don't know if it would.
Well, even if you take the argument, and even if the argument is totally plausible that it would, right? And if taxes and getting revenue from property is your only barometer of what's good for the village of MAMARONECK, why not make it a 50-story building? You know, why not allow, you know, God knows what, you know, a office building somewhere. You know, that can't, the purpose of zoning is not to create revenue. The purpose of zoning is to protect communities. And, you know, what would stop, you know, a person like me, I have a corner property, from saying, oh, geez, you know, it's a corner property. Wouldn't a gas station be nice here? And if there was no zoning, I could do that. I could put a gas, my neighbors might not be too happy, but this is the purpose of zoning. It's to protect the community.
Well, you raise a very interesting point. If, let's say, 125 units proposed of an apartment building is going to throw off a certain amount of dollars, would 250 units throw off some? So the question ultimately becomes, at what price do we sell our zoning, and what are the benefits that would accrue
to us? Exactly. You know, we have to start wrapping up, but I just want to I want to say before I close a couple of things. The first thing is I realize that there's another point of view here, and that the person who owns the property, I don't know his name, and the people who want to develop it have a point of view, and I would be happy if they would like to come on this program and talk about their plans and, you know, why they think it's a good idea. I'd be happy to have the other side of the discussion. You know, I'm always open to be convinced. I realize I don't have a monopoly on you know, all the information in the Village of Mamaroneck. So my email address I'll be giving out later, and they can email me, and if they want to come on, we'll arrange a time and we'll have them on, and they can, you know, lay out their plans, and that would be great. There's another thing I wanted to cover before I say goodnight. The Village of Mamaroneck had its elections in November, and congratulations to all 6 candidates who ran, and ran a good race. And what happened, though, recently, we are talking here on December 6th, is the Village of Mamaroneck winners were not able to be sworn in because the County of Westchester could not finish counting the votes in time to allow the democratic process in the Village of Mamaroneck to go forward. Now, what the Board of Elections is supposed to do is ensure that elections are fair, well-run, well-managed, and that benefit the electoral, and that we have a government that can keep functioning because we have a changeover that's seamless, which didn't happen here. And part of the reason, in my view, part of the reason is that the Board of Election Commissioners are the chairman of the Republican Party in Westchester County and the chairman of the Democratic Party in Westchester County, and they are way more interested in their own partisan issues than they are in making sure that the elections are run well. And as a community, as Westchester County, if we allow this to happen constantly, that our elections are more about partisanship than about people who know how to efficiently run them, you know, we're giving up our greatest right. You know, if people don't trust the process, they don't trust the government. And the process broke down here. And the fault, in my opinion, lies with the people who are running the Board of Elections. We should have people who are not so partisan, people who are interested in just running a fair election, who don't have financial interests in running people's campaigns and in, you know, doing mailings for other candidates. It's outrageous that we allow this to happen. And I hope the League of Women Voters, you know, gets an interest in this, because it really affects how we, you know, view democracy in Westchester County. And one last thing, my email address is tamurphy365@gmail.com, and I would like you to email suggestions for the name of this show, because I don't want to keep calling it the Tom Murphy Show. So if you have any suggestions, you know, hopefully, you know, they're not obscene, but obscene ones we read but not paid attention to. But please send them in to tamurphy365@gmail.com. And I'd like to thank the folks who worked on the show tonight. Asher Collins, the director, Andre Gordon on camera, and Remy Litvin on camera. They're 3 great guys. Thanks a lot. And until next time, I'm Tom Murphy, and have a good evening.